A busy night across parts of the Great Lakes tonight, where we have uh, some rather wild, severe weather going on after another day of 100-degree readings in Chicago. Meanwhile, we enjoyed another nice day here in much of the eastern part of the United States, but we're waiting for the first of two cold fronts to come on through so that we can just get to Saturday and Sunday when the weather will be just delightful. We'll preview that and much more tonight on.
The Joe and Joe Weather Show. Yes.
Yes.
I
And
don't
done
know
that.
about Saturday, Joe. I mean, I'm telling you right now, the
Ow.
way it's looking to me, Saturday, something wrong?
No, I just went to put my foot down on the leg of the table and I missed.
Saturday looks to me more like a day that's going to feel a lot more like late April or late October, with
Well,
between the wind and
it
it's
it may very
like
well
as
be.
echoing what you said yesterday. Looking at things today, there are going to be a few places that are not even going to get into the 70s. It'll be in the 60s for upper 60s much of the day, which is interesting because it was so warm out there today with temperatures in the mid 80s, and then on Friday it's looking like it's not only going to be warm, but it's also going to be rather humid. And then all of a sudden, boof,
Yeah.
we get into the weekend and things flip really fast.
Yeah, and of course, the forecast shoppers were riding me at the beginning of the week because, well, my app says it's going to be in the 80s on Saturday. Uh, or yeah, well, the one I got today, which was kind of interesting. I'm not really going to poke too much fun at it, but so we get these sort of intrusions all the time. Just like, I guess, just like in the wintertime, the snow fanatics seem to believe that every day starting roughly, I don't know, November 1st maybe, or unless they pushed it back to October 15th, I don't know. But from November 1st to the beginning of May, it's supposed to snow every single day, nonstop. So now on the opposite side of this is the fact that we get these cool, dry air intrusions during the summer months from time to time. Maybe this one is a little bit more on the extreme side, but nonetheless, we do get them. But here we are at the beginning. We're barely in the middle of June. The summer season technically hasn't really started yet, although June is I consider June to be a summer month. And I had people saying, "Oh, I guess that means we'll have no heat this summer." Come on, seriously? Do you really need to go down that road? It's not hot in front of, this is one of the things too, by the way. I wanted to bring this point up because I know I haven't seen him. He hasn't been on all week. Maybe he's had an apocalypse. I don't know. But Billy the Kid, virtually any weather event that happens in your own environment is because of climate change. And it is amazing how self-centered we are, and we have, in the sense that we forget the fact that, yeah, it might be cool in one spot, but then again, you're not the world doesn't revolve around your zip code. Okay, there are other places that are experiencing maybe the opposite of what you're getting. So, just bear that in mind. Just because you're experiencing one form of weather that seems a little bit unusual doesn't necessarily mean anything. Okay? If it happens over the course of a couple of hundred years, then yeah, maybe it means something. But a single event does not transpire into a global apocalypse. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah, you're right in the fact that it is a little bit more extreme than usual. I can remember we had outbreaks of cool, dry air out of Canada, like sometime in the early to middle part of August. And
Hmm.
that was like the first signal that we were about to see things change. We haven't seen that happen too much of late. And who knows, after such a cool start, we might actually see by August and September extreme heat here, which we don't often see. But it all depends upon the pattern, the setup, and right now it is looking like for a good part of the next few weeks, we here in the Northeast are going to be seeing more of a coolish weather pattern as opposed to an extreme hot one. like they're seeing out in the nation's midsection.
Yeah, and the other thing is that just from the standpoint of not knowing what's going to be happening down the road. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had. Uh, I'm having a tough time recalling the last time. I mean, where we had a truly early start to the autumn season, where it comes in at the end of August, basically, and you have a really, really cool September. That has not happened in quite a long time.
Quite a long time. You're absolutely right. In fact, it was just a few years ago we hit. Didn't we hit 90 in at the beginning of October? It was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. We had like a
Yeah, but
couple of 90
didn't we have a couple of days last year in the Northeast in the early part of October where we got into the 80s, or I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I don't view the odd I don't view the odd day here and there when it happens as anything significant. Um, you have to sort of look at the whole month, I think, when you're looking at what exactly. And of course, you don't really know it too much before at least the first 2 weeks go by. You get a sense of where you're going with this, but it's hard to take. You're going to get the odd days here and there in the early fall where it's going to be very warm. The question is it one day? Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? That to me is the more important question. And I don't know. Obviously, is that something that we're going to be able to answer now? We're just talking in theory. And the same holds true for the summer. I mean, just because we have this pattern that we're sitting in now doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to hold all the way through. I'm sure at some point we'll get our stretches of 90 plus temperatures that will last for 3 or 4 days. Whether it goes to low 90s or whether it goes to upper 90s. How the heck should I know?
yeah,
I'm, you know,
yeah. How would you
I'm in a
know?
really good mood. I'm in a really good mood today, and I'll tell you why. I should have played a lottery ticket today. I should have played a lottery ticket and just randomly picked six numbers, and I think I would have gotten at least five of them because I had two ongoing issues for the last couple of weeks having to do with my medical stuff and paperwork that I had to do and insurance and everything else. Um, Having my appointments canceled and then not rescheduled and et cetera, et cetera. And I was getting very frustrated. And this morning before 9 a.m., I had them all solved, all of them. It just all
Oh,
of a sudden,
lovely.
I just like this morning, I don't know, everything just seemed to fall into place. I got the information that I needed that I was not able to get my hands on. I got everything else straightened out, and I was like, whoa. For the you struggle with something for a couple of weeks and you start to think that you're never going to fix this thing, and then all of a sudden it just literally just as if the pieces just fell out of the sky and fell right into the right spots of the puzzle, and the puzzle was done. So I'm a happy camper today.
Well, since you're such a happy camper, let's kick things off by looking at well, what are we going to kick things
Well,
off with
I
first? The
thought
upper
I
air,
thought we'd
or
go right to the severe since you are now the god of radar. I thought we would go right to that, and because it is a very busy severe weather night up in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest. And before we do that, I do want to show you. I do have because this was another thing I couldn't get to work for some reason. I could not get the Weather Service hazards map to work um, on Chrome, and I'm using Chrome. I could get it on Mozilla, but I couldn't get it to work on Chrome. Well, lo and behold, today for the first time, they did a Chrome update and they fixed what was broken, and I guess I can get it now. Midway today, Joe. Right now it's 97 degrees at Midway, and the high today was 100 degrees. 100.
that's two in a row for them, I think, right? It's
Yes.
pretty amazing.
And Milwaukee at the moment is 93 and with a dew point of 63. Trying to see where their max temperature is. It got to 95 today in Milwaukee, and just looking at some of the high temperatures, it's a little bit tough to see on the map But it was another day of mid to upper 90s throughout much of the Midwest and in the Ohio Valley. And then meanwhile, if I shift over to the east, you still got some 90. You still got a fair amount of 90s across much of Ohio. Cleveland got to 97. Well, that's their high temperature today was 97. I don't see any triple digits though in Ohio. A lot of 95s, 96s in Sandusky, Joe. Sandusky, Ohio, got to 93 for the high.
That's my brother-in-law's. That's my brother. One of my brother-in-law's favorite places to go or to visit. They apparently have a famous
Amusement park. Yes,
park out
it's a big deal.
and,
I know
and yeah,
that's a big deal.
Yeah. So if you allow me to share,
yes, I just want to just let me just move the high tower. Just want to show as close as those 90s were, because they did make it to low 90s in western Pennsylvania. On the other side of that, it was mostly, there were some middle and upper 80s across parts of southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, upper 80s to around 90 in the Washington, D.C. area. Long Island temperatures, at least the South Shore temperatures, never got out of the 70s today with the wind off the water. And it was mostly low 80s in the Hudson Valley, upper 70s to low 80s in Connecticut and in Massachusetts, and upstate New York was mostly lower 80s. So as close as that heat is to us, it is never really going to make a move here because of all the changes. And now, of course, as we said, we've got severe weather issues, so we're going to give let me give Mr. Rayo the board here.
The magnificent.
Yes, exactly. There you go. You now have the sharing capabilities that you are entitled to.
All right. Well, let's start off with this particular very impressive. Now, you just spoke of all of the extreme heat in places like Milwaukee and Chicago. Well, we're about to bring a little bit of relief to those folks because, as you can see, there's a very definite squall line, an area of showers and scattered thunderstorms. Look at all that lightning that covers literally from the northernmost, well, from the the UP of Michigan all the way down to southwestern Wisconsin. And that line is moving at a pretty good clip. This is a 3-hour loop. So one would have to anticipate that within the next 3 hours, let's say around 10 o'clock Central Time, Chicago will be under the gun for thunderstorms, probably about an hour or so earlier for Milwaukee. All of those showers and storms racing off to the east. And if I can just stop sharing that for a moment and go to another particular view here, this would be of the radar out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And you can see, Joe, that this is a rather significant line of strong to severe weather, strong to severe thunderstorms, rapidly moving in from west to east and moving, well, it looks like it's going to be almost over Oshkosh. Never been to Oshkosh.
Not Oshkosh. There's Oshkosh B'gosh, which is the that's children's clothing, and then there's the Oshkosh Trucking Company. Right. By the way, on that radar at the moment, because Tornado HQ is working tonight, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 working tornado warnings at the moment. That's a lot. That is a lot of activity, and I'm not even counting the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 severe thunderstorm warnings that are separate from the tornado warnings. So that is and SPC went to a moderate risk, and rightfully so.
Oh, no question. And I mean, if this doesn't bring the temperatures down, nothing will.
Right.
This is your good old fashioned. Almost, it's not even summer yet, but this is a good old fashioned midsummer heavy duty squall line, which you look for to break a spell of extreme heat, and that is about to happen indeed for places like Green Bay and Milwaukee and Chicago. This is gonna pretty well do it. And the question, I'm sure, in the minds of not a few people out there is any of this stuff going to make it as far east as our area? And it doesn't seem like that's going to be, well, I mean, we may get an indirect influence from that, but it won't be a direct hit. But it will be coming our way maybe in the after midnight hours, and for the early part of tomorrow, a few showers and storms affiliated or associated with that line of heavy duty weather.
Well, that severe weather is going to shift it to western New York and western Pennsylvania, and SPC also when we get to it, SPC also lifted that up to an enhanced risk for tomorrow. But that's to the west. We our main area is eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, down to Washington D.C. and Baltimore. But we do also talk about weather
Right.
elsewhere. Just to just to remind everybody that it's not just all about us here in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. Tornado warnings up at the moment, and if you're watching this on a replay, I will take this opportunity to remind such persons. It is 7:48 Eastern time, which means it is 6:48 Central time. And if you're watching this on a replay, obviously everything here is dated, so be sure to go to check the latest regarding severe weather in your neck of the woods by going to your local National Weather Service office forecast page. You can access that easily and simply by going to weather.gov and clicking on the appropriate geographic spot to get your local National Weather Service office. So if you don't know at least a minimal amount of geography, you may be in trouble. But we've got a tornado warning that is going to last another 12 minutes, and this is for Manette County in Wisconsin. I gotta love these when I read the severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located over Wasaki or 23 miles northwest of Menominee, Menomine, Menominee, moving northeast at 65 miles an hour, Joe. 65
Oh
miles an
God.
hour.
I mean, it's like when you're forecasting a hurricane at moving at like 40 or 50 knots. I mean, just the forward speed added into the extreme conditions associated with the actual squall line. Add that forward speed in, and you're looking at you're looking at a cruising to be to get a
Bruising,
bruising,
yes.
so to speak.
We've got another tornado warning that's up for another 26 minutes, and this is in Wisconsin, Marinette, and Akanto counties. Also, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located 7 miles east of Gillette or 21 miles east of Shawano, moving northeast at 65 miles an hour. The speed limit on the Jersey Turnpike once you get south of, I think, exit 12. Tornado warning in another one in Marinette County. Some of these may be the same ones, and then they just kind of, take one part of it down and then extend it on the other side. But this is also going to go out for another 11 minutes. And there's one that now we've got a few of them that have expired. I'm just looking to see. Um, uh, this one was in Green Lake County in Wisconsin, and another one in Brown and Outagamie, Outagamie County. All of these are based on severe thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes, but I don't see any of these warnings actually saying that there's a confirmed tornado. So just want to make that distinction because the radar's picking up on something, so they issue the warning, which is always the wise thing to do. Now, whether you wind up with an actual tornado on the ground is another matter, but nonetheless, the warnings are up, and a very busy night on this from the Storm Prediction Center. A moderate risk in that area that we're seeing thunderstorms right now. Enhanced risk surrounds that, and the slight risk, which finds its way down to northwestern Indiana to about St. Louis, then kind of curls back into Kansas. Ms. Fallerite pointing out on the chat board that she's got a severe thunderstorm watch that just went up in parts of Kansas. We'll take a look at that in a second. In the east, we've got a narrow sliver of slight risk going right through central Pennsylvania and western Virginia. and then that expands a bit into western North and most of South Carolina, just about the whole state of Georgia, except for me, and then extending down into southeastern Alabama. So a fairly large area of slight risk. There's some stuff on the radar at the moment in the southeast, but it's nothing, nothing crazy. If I bring up the full U.S. view, you'll notice in the southeastern part of the U.S. You got a lot of it's clusters of thunderstorms, mostly from Atlanta southward, and we're seeing a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings that are up for a number of counties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like 9 severe thunderstorm warnings there, and then a couple of more that are running into central Alabama. And those are, you'll notice on the flow, they're not really moving very much. They're just kind of inching their way, I guess, southwestward is the primary motion. Also seeing some special marine warnings off the Florida coast to south of Tampa St. Pete, and some thunderstorms there that are moving offshore. Here's the wretched line that we're talking about here, up moving into through Wisconsin now, and there are even some big storms on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan showing up on the radar. It's hard to believe a place that gets as cold as it does on the UP of Michigan can wind up seeing the thunderstorms, the kinds of thunderstorms that they get, but they do get them. You've got these little bands of showers in central North Dakota and eastern Montana. That sort of represents, we've got 2 cold fronts that are coming into the east, so this might very well be the beginnings of the second one. And some steady rain is moving up into the Pacific Northwest. Now let's take a look at SPC for tomorrow. So this was a change, Joe, for tomorrow. SPC has now put an area of enhanced risk through much of western New York, not quite to Buffalo, though, or southwestern corner of New York, but Rochester, Syracuse, up I-81 all the way into north central New York under enhanced risk. Much of western and central Pennsylvania under enhanced risk. The marginal risk, the eastern flank, goes from the Vermont-New York state, right on the Canadian border, New York, Vermont, Canada, where that meets. That line goes south-southwestward through the Catskills to westernmost New Jersey, and then covers Delaware, the Delmarva, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. And this is coming right now with a 5% tornado risk that covers much of the enhanced area there in western New York. I was reading the discussion from SPC, and they were pointing out a lot of uncertainty with regards to the development tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening in the inland areas. I don't think the bulk of those storms, as strong as they might get, I don't think they're going to survive the trip all the way to the coast. Some might, but I don't think I think the severe stuff is going to time out perfectly for the inland, those areas well inland. But by the time they reach the coast, it may already be well past the evening hours, and they'll start to weaken.
Now, the thing that I found interesting is that the GFS was pretty much like, not all that much to get. I mean, in the immediate tri-state area for precipitation, for showers and thunderstorms. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the NAM was really saying like, hey, you guys better watch out, especially after midnight, after 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would, numerically, we're putting out the potential for some possible showers and storms here till about, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So, I mean, one model was, the global model was fairly deficit in forecasting much of anything. And meanwhile, the local model, the North American model, was saying, no, you got to watch out for this. There may be some stuff to be concerned with. So I just played it the way, straight down the middle. I said, all right, if we do get anything out of this, maybe a couple of showers or a thunderstorm, maybe after 3 or 4 in the morning up until about 10 or 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Right.
That's about it. I wouldn't put too much of an emphasis on it. But if there's going to be anything, I think that'll be the time frame. And that, again, would be related to all of that activity, which is really squeezed together over central and western New York. I mean, look at that. I mean, like, you could take a trip from hardly anything into a zone of marginal, and then suddenly you're in slight, And my goodness, suddenly you live in Syracuse or Rochester, you got to watch out presumably for not only just thunderstorms, but potential tornadic activity. So it'll be an interesting late night and into the day tomorrow to watch as to see what we're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
And you haven't yet jumped over to day 3.
No, I'm gonna go back to that in a second. I just pulled up the NAM. I was looking at the upper air. I mean, the upper air is not. There's some jet streaks for late tomorrow and tomorrow night, but I in Western New York and Western PA, it didn't really. It didn't really light a fire under me. Now, the funny thing is, for tonight, there's the NAM is picking up on something that's up in. I got the GFS up. No wonder it didn't look right. I thought I switched to the NAM model. I'm sorry. My apologies. So there was the GFS that did, like you said, look like I mean, there's a couple of scattered storms I'm seeing here. Yeah, there's stuff that forms in Pennsylvania and moves southeastward. It looks like it gets into southern New Jersey and then moves out. It's when we get into these weird upper air flow patterns where things are starting to move around the front side of ridges, and they're moving in directions that you don't often see. It can be very confusing. Then that goes out. Then it fires up a line tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, it's not again, I don't know. It doesn't look overly impressive. Although I always say that when you look at these short range models when it comes to thunderstorms, you could really be led down the wrong path because oftentimes these models don't do a good job in picking up the scope and the magnitude of the convection. So if SPC is
right.
Yeah, so I mean, if SPC is confident that there's going to be a fair amount of development tomorrow, I would kind of go with them. I'm just pulling up the HRRR from the 18Z HRRR, and of course that has absolutely nothing for today. I mean, it's got a few showers and storms around 5 a.m. in a patch that's coming out of eastern Pennsylvania, but these move, it's unlike the NAM, these move into northern New Jersey and then they weaken. And it's a weird surface too because you've got this high in Nova Scotia that's necked into the Jersey coast, so there must be some kind of little trough that's going by that's causing that. Then we get into a southwest wind. And the HRRR actually has got a much more impressive looking line of storms across more in upstate New York than in Pennsylvania. And actually, Joe, they get almost to about you, and some of them survive tomorrow evening down to the coast around 9, 10 11 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and then that moves out.
Right.
And I'm just running into Friday afternoon. The second front is coming through at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's this sort of thin line of thunderstorms from Maine to just north and west of Boston, and then they just start to die off in Connecticut. So, I mean, I threw in the chance that there could be another brief shower or thunderstorm Friday when that front goes by, and then they'll be dancing in the streets afterward because of the I'm not a big hot, humid weather fan, so for me, I know some people are not happy with the idea that the weekend is going to turn out to be the way it's going to turn out. Frankly, with all the heat and humidity that you usually get to deal with on a given summer, I would think you would welcome some cooler air, but not.
Well, it's like I was saying yesterday. For folks who are going to be at the ocean-facing beaches, New Jersey, south coast of Long Island. I mean, let me stress here: Saturday is not going to be a beach day.
No.
Plain and simple. First of all, the first half of the day, as that cold air advection takes hold, and it's going to be a very unstable flow. Saturday, when you wake up on Saturday morning, you look out the window, you say, "Oh my goodness, what is that all about?" Because I think we're going to have broken to even overcast conditions to kick off the day. Then the skies are going to clear very quickly, probably by noon or 1 o'clock. You'll have that sharp edge to the clearing line, and it'll become beautifully blue and sunny. But it's going to be, the winds, I guess, are going to be roaring out of the northwest, 20, maybe even 30 miles per hour. The temperatures are going to be struggling just to get to 70 degrees. And even if they do get to 70, with that wind roaring the way it is, it's going to feel probably, I know we don't keep wind chills, when the temperatures are that high, but still the wind is going to make it feel very cool, probably around 60 or low 60s. I can just imagine being at Jones Beach, let's say 2, 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, you're sitting there, you're seeing the umbrella flapping away, the sand will be blowing like being out in the
Right,
Sahara, a whole
and
different.
basically, if you put enough sunscreen on, it'll just turn you into a walking veal cutlet.
Exactly, exactly. Now Sunday will be much better, only from the standpoint that it'll be a few degrees warmer and there'll be much less wind. It'll still be breezy, no question about it. Still a breezy day, but blue skies and sunshine from start to finish on Sunday. So Father's Day, Father's Day will be the nicest, I think, or the better of the 2 weekend days. And you look at now, we were talking about just a few moments ago, day three of the
Right.
severe thunderstorm outlook. And what I found interesting, Joe, is that when you look at day three, you see that New England and eastern New York and New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, all of that is under, quote, general thunderstorm coverage. And yet, even though that is just general thunderstorm coverage, they actually, in the discussion, put in a notation about New England. Modest low-level moisture should be in place ahead of cold front across parts of New England Friday morning. There are differences in latest global guidance regarding the placement of the front and the quality of the low-level moisture, have leaned toward the 0Z GFS and European frontal position and timing. But basically what they're saying is that even though New England, for example, and quite possibly eastern New York as well, is under just general thunderstorm conditions, don't be fooled, because with the temperatures, I think here in the Hudson Valley, we're going to be in the mid, maybe upper 80s. We still have dew point temperatures through mid-afternoon in the middle 60s. So however weak that front may be, when it comes across later in the day on Friday, it may very well generate here and there a renegade, locally strong cell or two of heavy weather in terms of thunderstorm activity. And this doesn't happen too often, too frequently. But you're out there, it's bright and sunny. All of a sudden, the sky gets dark. You get a 5 or 10 minute downpour, complete with lightning, thunder, and whatnot. And within 5 or 10 minutes, once that localized cell passes you by, the sky becomes even clearer and bluer. You immediately notice the difference in terms of the humidity. It has dropped quite a bit. So that's the kind of a day I think we're going to be looking at on Friday. Is going to be a day that's going to be very warm, very humid. Cool front moves through mid-afternoon. Could have a hit or miss, locally strong thunderstorm in a few places. I'm not saying it's going to be a squall line. I'm not going to be saying that there's any kind of organized thunderstorm activity, but they're going to be speckling New England and parts of eastern New York. And those speckles are going to be, again, localized, strong to severe thunderstorms popping up, you
Yep.
know, like that.
Yeah.
They don't make that noise when they pop, but it's going to be that kind of a day on Friday. And then after that, woof, in comes that chilly northerly airflow, both aloft and at the surface, and bringing those temperatures down and the dew points down. And what a difference a day makes, or less than a day makes, because Saturday is going to be a whole different story. Like I said, more like late October or late April on Saturday, when you factor in the wind and all kinds of stuff, as compared to what we're going to see on Friday.
WPC on their rainfall for the next 7 days, it's basically under a quarter of an inch from Maine down the coastal plain. But it's convectively driven across Pennsylvania and upstate New York, where you've got half an inch to an inch and a quarter. And when you look at much of the country, that's kind of what the story is here. The only exception I would make to that is in the Southwest, where parts of the Southwest anyway, where we're continuing to see indications of monsoonal action and moisture coming up from Mexico and into New Mexico, eastern Arizona, easternmost Utah, western Colorado. Either side of that remains bone dry through most of Texas, bone dry through most of California, Nevada, and western Arizona. So some relief for some areas in the drought-stricken places there, but not even a dent, or a very teensy dent. All right, the teleconnections, kind of interesting. The PNA, the Pacific North America Index, going negative and actually going on the mean one standard deviation, although there is a wide range among the members as always in the latter part of the forecast period, but the average takes us one standard deviation negative. You might want to put that in a checkbox if you ever want to look at the long range. because Mike is watching the show tonight, and he's always talking about things, epic events months from now, and how they're all locked. It's a lock that we're going to get, something in August or September or October. But a little more short.
I have a
Yes,
question.
I'm a little more short range than
I
that,
have a question.
Mike. Go aahead.
The day before Noah set sail on his giant boat, his giant ark, did the PNA suggest that we were going to have any long-term effects or any kind of long-term, many multiple days of heavy-duty rain and deluge and
No,
floods
but
or
he
whatever?
did.
Or we
No,
just
but he did turn on the radio, and then he heard, "Well, the big apocalypse that we've been talking about for the past four for the past 40 epochs is about to ensue, but we don't care." Oh, good lord.
yeah.
Anyhow, anytime you got, whenever I see a negative PNA and we go into the summer months, I start thinking of this. Sometimes we get the PNA to go negative. You can get some interesting severe weather events depending on, what else is going on with the other teleconnections. Uh, no real indication either way, but the NAO again, and I think this goes to the very unstable nature of the atmosphere. I see a few of you have been posting about the certitude of whatever the European was doing in the long range. I would just caution you that there's such a wide range in terms of where these members are, and you really aren't even you're talking about past day 5 where they start going all over the place. So I wouldn't necessarily, and said this yesterday. There's been this tendency for troughing to drop in the east, and to me, in my mind, it's hard to fathom that it's going to radically change very much. And I think the NAO is kind of telling you to be careful here because there's whenever you see a mess like this, because it is a mess, half the members are below the mean, half the members are above the mean, but it starts at day 5, it starts going crazy. So I would just be I would just be cautious about coming to any kind of longer term conclusions until we get a real sense of how the upper air pattern is going to go. In the meantime, short range was the GFS. We've got this again front for tomorrow. And by the way, there are going to be some storms that extend down through the Carolinas and into North Georgia with this second front on Friday. And then, of course, as Joe points out, Saturday you're going to have the wind. You got this cutoff low that's going to be off the coast of New England. So it'll be a gusty wind. The cool high that builds down, so the heat wave breaks in the upper Midwest and in the Ohio Valley, and that high settles down into West Virginia and Virginia. We're likely to see temperatures a little bit running below average, although the coolest air obviously will be over the weekend, but it'll still be a little bit below average into the very beginning of next week. And we're still dealing with this. It's something coming down from, I love following this along, Joe. You got a low on Sunday in northeastern Montana. Okay, it shoots up to where it's just about off the map early Tuesday morning, and then it drops southeastward, and it brings showers and thunderstorms. I mean, how often do you see showers and thunderstorms that are sitting over James Bay, moving south-southeast down the Hudson Valley, through New Jersey, and offshore? I mean, that's just hysterical to see that. It's just basically coming over the top and then dropping straight south. Again, probably because of the remnants of the deep trough that's out to the east and the northerly flow aloft. After that, I mean, there's a couple of systems later next week. One around the 23rd, which is Thursday, with some showers and storms, and then after that, it's kind of inconclusive depending on how the model plays. I will say, because I did look, I know at the 12Z, I didn't look all the way through on the 18Z. I don't see the GFS developing any kind of tropical systems. And as we've noted for much of last week and in the beginning of this week, how the GFS seems to be having problems with overdevelopment down in the Caribbean and the Southwest Gulf, which is sort of impacting its entire view of North America, even in the short range. Well, it doesn't have anything tropical going on, so that might be gives you maybe a little bit more confidence in what the model's showing. Look at that deep trough. Look at that upper low. I mean, just drops down to the Gulf of Maine and just hangs there all weekend. It doesn't really pull out until later Tuesday. And then after that, let's see where it takes us. Now, you do have this flat ridge in Texas. Another upper low is swinging across Hudson Bay next Thursday. So that sort of accounts for a front maybe later next week. Sorry, folks, I'm just dealing with the circle of death here. Then that lifts out. And then we start to see a flat ridge build across the south of 35 degrees north. So basically from the Carolinas to the Central Plains. And I mean, there is some ridging. You kind of get on the edge of the ridge, reaches about New York on the last days of the month of June. It doesn't look very blocky, but then there's another upper low late in the period that drops into Labrador that lowers the heights a little bit. So, does it mean that we'll have maybe a couple of very warm to possibly a couple of hot days? Maybe. Does it mean that it's going to be more than that? I would at this point, I would doubt it. I mean, that's my opinion.
I'd like to show you on the what the Climate Prediction Center has mentioned for us, or for much of the region. I know I'm in share mode here, so let me know when it's up.
Yeah, it's there. And, it's there.
Okay, so we have 3 zones here. This is excessive heat slight, a slight risk of excessive. Now, they don't really give you an idea of what excessive heat is. My idea is that they're talking about anything above, let's say, 95 degrees or above 90 to 95. And it's a broad area, and it's also a broad time frame from the 23rd through the 29th of June. Now, just to point out here, the 23rd is a week from tomorrow. The 29th is 2 weeks from today. So let's show you where that zone is for excessive heat, slight risk of excessive heat. That covers much of the eastern half of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. It goes all the way down through and encompasses a portion of Chicago. Those poor folks in Chicago, it's going to be a warm spell, no question about that. Down into, but look at how it gets depressed or suppressed. It goes into the lower Ohio Valley, across southern West Virginia, into north central Virginia. And then we talk about a moderate risk of excessive heat from the 23rd to the 25th of June. That covers an area which encompasses portions of Kansas, Missouri, central and southern sections of Illinois, and down into Kentucky, and over into extreme southern sections of Virginia. And then we got excessive heat high, the high probability. And I point this out, Joe, because you're in this.
Yes, I saw.
Of course, 2,200 feet above sea level, maybe you'll be able to ward off what is being commonly referred to down here as excessive heat. 23rd to the 24th, that is a week from tomorrow. That's 1 week from tomorrow and a week from Friday, the end of next week. And it encompasses much of the Southland, if you will, eastern Texas, southwestern Oklahoma, all of Arkansas and Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama, much of Tennessee, all of Georgia. Joe, this may finally, you went the whole year last year, the whole summer without getting to 90, and we're going to take a shot. We're going to take a shot at hitting that 90 mark for you later next week. At least that's according to the Climate Prediction Center. Lower sections of North Carolina, all of South Carolina, and the northern third of Florida, all in that zone of a high probability of excessive heat. But the most wonderful thing about all of this is neither high nor moderate or low risk of any kind of excessive heat here in the Northeast. We are apparently sitting pretty with temperatures mostly in the 70s and 80s through the end of the month, it would appear. And of course, as I said, on Saturday of this weekend, we may even get to 70 degrees. So I'm happy. The air conditioning, hopefully, is going to get a nice rest in the second half of this normally very warm to hot month of June, at least up here in the great Northeast.
By the way, I was, one other thing I wanted to mention too. When I hear anyone ever say, "Oh, this is it," I've never experienced heat like this in my entire life. Uh, I'm gonna always try to remember to ask to make a note of the person's age, because I got someone I know, a younger person, had messaged me about a friend of theirs who said that they've never seen extreme heat like this, and he's in like this in his life, and he's in Dallas, and I immediately remembered 1980. So I just looked it up on Google. So in Dallas Fort Worth, the record for the most consecutive days of 100 degrees. Okay, not 90, not 95, 100 or higher. 42 days in a row. June 23rd, 1980 through August 3rd, 1980. Okay? So when you break that record, come talk to me and talk to me about excessive heat. Number two, no, yeah, I mean, seriously, number two on that, by the way, was 40 days from July 2nd to August 10th, 2011. Then there was 29 days in July 6th to August 3rd, 1998, and then 25 days, August 2nd through the 26th of 1952. So if they tell you that it's never happened before, you don't really have to dig pretty far to look up and see that it probably has. Okay. Um,
Yeah, they get hot down there, and you don't even have to go back to 1980. I remember it wasn't last summer, but several summers ago. I mean, it was almost like every day. It seemed like it was like 100 degrees in Dallas and Houston. I gotta salute you, Joe, for spending even a short amount of time in Corpus Christi.
oh, it wasn't. You
That
know
must have been
what?
one
It
heck of.
wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't that bad. The first summer, like anything, the first summer is the toughest because you're in a new environment. But you get so used to it, Joe. The times that I flew back home, especially in the wintertime, I mean, I can remember flying. I flew in January, in late December, early January, and it was cold. I mean, it was in the 20s. It wasn't anything crazy cold. It was in the 20s. I thought my fingers were gonna fall off. I mean, it's your
Yeah,
body just
yeah,
really, your body acclimates to this stuff very quickly. After the first summer there, it was fine. It was, yeah, it's hot, it's humid. The funny thing is, in Corpus Christi, if you drive not that far inland, if you drive maybe 20 miles inland, the humidity drops way way down. The dew points go down because and there was always a wind. So that was the one big plus. You always had a wind day and night coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. So it did make it easier to take. On the other hand, the 3 years in New
yeah.
Orleans, it got to low 90s every day. Every day, you around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you had a thunderstorm with heavy rain, which made it that much more humid. And then at night, it would cool down to maybe low 70s. Sometimes you would actually even break 70 briefly, if you were lucky. But most times it would be low 70s. But the air didn't move. I mean, it just didn't move. And yet, to me, it still was easy. It still was easier to take than the humidity that you get up in the Northeast. I'm sorry, but that's the worst. The humidity in the Northeast is the absolute worst.
Oh, sure. I mean, even what we're going to be experiencing here on Friday, 85, 87, dew point 65. I mean, that's not even a dew point depression of 20 degrees. So, you know, or as the great Tex Antoine used to say, sometimes, tomorrow is going to be like the kind of a day where the wallpaper is going to begin to peel off your
Yeah.
wall.
And then
That's,
we have
yeah,
then we
that's,
have Alfred Phillips up in Wainwright, Alaska, who's got his speedo on right now because it's 43 there, and he's on the North Slope. So uh, it's
right.
all you know what? It's all relative.
And for Halford, as I was talking about yesterday, for him, it's not really the beginning of summer. It's near the peak of the daytime or daylight for him, because once we get past the solstice early next week, the sun is going to, again, imperceptibly at first, but then more gradually as we go through July and August, is going to start to fall, and the daylight is going to begin to shrink. It must be so sad to reach, the solstice. Actually, it wasn't even the solstice. I mentioned in Norway and Sweden and those far distant northern European countries, they consider that to be not the 21st, but the 24th of June. And they still have a holiday, Midsummer Day, they call it. And that's the day when they say the sun is triumphed over darkness. The forces of darkness have been defeated by the summer sun. But after that, downhill goes the sun, and away goes the sun, and the days begin to get shorter. So it depends upon how you look at things. But boy, it certainly, at least in the Midwest, it certainly is hot enough to be considered midsummer right
Yep.
now.
All right, I guess we could wrap it up for tonight. We pretty much covered everything from coast to coast. There's nothing going on really in the tropics that, again, once again, the GFS leads you down the wrong path. Since most of that, at least when I checked earlier, the actual little low that they were following the Hurricane Center had moved inland. And in fact, looking at the overall model profile going forward in the tropics, the gyre of moisture that's sitting over Central America looks to shift westward into the Pacific. So the European has that, and even the GFS shows it. So that could be the reason why it's not spinning up anything anymore. So again, we may have a little bit more reliability in the GFS, which for whatever reason has got it's got it in its head to want to spin up these hurricanes down in the Caribbean and Southwest Gulf, and they're just not happening. So we'll just leave it at that. Did you just rise? Oh, guess what
Yes.
day it is? Well, it is the 49th anniversary of Secretariat winning the Triple Crown at Belmont Park by a million,
Yep.
31 lengths or whatever it was, in a time of 224 and change, which is a record that will probably never be broken ever.
I mentioned to Renata that, I mentioned this after the race on Saturday, that maybe to the end of our time on this planet, Joe, we're never going to see another Belmont race like that one. And I still remember how Secretariat and Sham, not to be confused with Art
Yes,
Shamsky, but
Sham.
Sham, they were they
Yeah.
were they were pretty well, matched off for about the first half of the race, and all of a sudden, Secretary put on the afterburners and by Sham.
Well, it was
And that was,
Sham
and I think that
Sham
was it.
Sham was a nice horse, and if it weren't for Secretariat, Sham might have won the Triple Crown that year. But you could say that about a number of horses along the way. But reading about the history of the race and the days going into it, the owner of Sham decided that he was going to basically try to run Secretariat into the ground, and that's why the two horses went head to head to try to get the horses to run these fast fractions, and then Secretariat would just conk out. And yeah,
I
that didn't actually, the opposite happened. Sham ran himself, so Sham basically ran himself into the ground and finished dead last in that short field. But
right,
yeah, I mean,
right.
those Secretariat was a horse that there's if you go back to the history of horse racing, there are these horses that show up once every 25 or 30 years that are just they're freaks. They're just monsters. I mean, the autopsy showed that Secretariat's heart was 3 times the size of a normal horse's heart. So it's like
Wow.
it was amazing. But these are things that happen once every 25, 50, 75 years. If you're lucky enough to live in that period where it happens, you get to witness something truly historic from a horse racing perspective. And then it
They
doesn't happen again in your lifetime, but you had that moment, and that makes it really, really, really precious and important.
Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby once said of Frank Sinatra, "He's the greatest. He's the greatest singer of our time. But why did it have to be my time?" And I'm sure that if Sham and Secretary could talk, Sham would probably say, "Secretary, he's the greatest horse of our time, but why did it have to be my
Well, it's
time?"
like affirmed in Aladar. They finished 1-2 in a few years later. You didn't have a Triple Crown winner for
Right,
25 years, and then suddenly you had three in the next 7 years. It just and then there's another.
right,
Then we had that long dry spell until when was it? American Pharaoh, I think, when he won the Triple Crown, and then you had Justify
right.
after that. So these are these are again generational moments, but particularly Secretariat that was a huge generational moment. So anyhow,
Yeah.
we'll thanks everybody for being here tonight. Most appreciated. Thanks everybody, those of you on the chat board carrying on with the conversation, which we always like to see. And they do read through it from time to time. So we'll see you tomorrow. Sunday, Joe, we're gonna have to discuss whether we'll do it. I don't know what your plans are for Sunday. Um, I'll have to let you know whether we'll do an early show or maybe Sunday evening. I don't know which one yet I can do. Okay, but we'll talk
Okay.
about that. We'll talk
Okay.
about that tomorrow.
All righty.
All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll see you.